What kind of book strikes you as the perfect November read? I'm still trying to work that out for myself because I love the idea of cozy books for November, but I live in the Southern Hemisphere and it gets pretty hot where I live in November. Let's take a look at the books I did read this past November, as well as set up some tracking spreads for both November and December in my reading journal. Hi, I'm Erin, and I'd like to know what your favourite read of November was. As always, for this year we're working in my square reading journal from Archer & Olive. This one is 9 by 9 inches, which is not the normal size for a square journal, and I'm really looking forward to moving into next year's journal because this one's actually really hard to fit in a video frame when I'm recording. It also started to fall apart a couple of months ago, but my repairs on it seem to be holding up okay, so that's nice. We'll start by adding to my list of all of the books I've read this year, which is a numbered list that helps me keep track of where I'm at. I did have a goal for this year, and I have hit it, which is very, very nice. My goal was 60 books. I track my reading digitally with an app called Storygraph, and I have a link to my Storygraph account down in the description in case you want to be friends over there. That's why I'm always referencing my phone when I'm doing reading journal things, is because I need that data from Storygraph. I won't go too much into the titles that I read just yet because we'll talk about each one individually when we set up review spreads for those books later on. So let's keep adding to my annual trackers first, starting with this one, which is for my book club, the Page Majors. Let's put the last book cover in here for the year. We read one book every month, and our book for December is The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea by Axie O. Thank you to Bhavna for suggesting this one. If you'd like to be part of the book club, all you have to do is join the channel on the Page Majors level. There is a join link down below. And over in my private Discord server, we have a channel where we discuss our book of the month every month. I've added some updates to my series tracker, and I'm currently reading one of the books on my maybe next list, so that's always good to see things are getting crossed off. I haven't paid much attention to my book bingo boards for a couple of months though, so I need to do some updating here. Some of these books were ones that I read in October. I just kind of forgot to fill this out. There was a lot going on. I read a lot more in October than is typical for me this year. Kind of wild that we're into December now and I haven't completed a single bingo row on either of these bingo boards. I guess I have the diagonal on the romance trope bingo, but you know, I thought I'd have a lot more of them crossed off by this point. That's okay. I wasn't using it to really focus what my reading was going to be. Typically, towards the end of my reading journal videos, I will go ahead and set up the tracking pages for the following month, but because there were so many books that I read in October, I actually didn't do this last time around, so I haven't set up my November tracking spreads yet. It was going to mean my video would take a lot longer to get out, and I just wanted to get the video up in a timely manner, so that's funny, isn't it? Because this one's technically going up pretty late for when I like to post my reading wrap-ups for the previous month, but life has been lifing. So let's set up some November tracking pages, and because of the way I finished up October, I've got this kind of one very minimal review over on the left side, and then this blank space on the right. I'm just going to use this as my cover page this time. Usually I will have a full double page spread, but I thought this'll do. This'll do. As always, if you like the look of any of the stationery I'm using in this video, I'll try to link to as much of it as I can down in the description. Sometimes I'm using things that are no longer available. I try to find alternatives where I can, but it's not always possible. The one I'm using here is the brown plaid washi tape from Paper Monogatari's Dark Academia collection, and that one is still available at the time I'm recording this, which is very nice. I didn't line up this third one as well as I thought I did. Kind of ruined my pattern there, but do you know what? I don't mind. It's fine. It's still kind of giving the overall effect I was going for here. Didn't realize that until I went to edit the video, funnily enough. And my go-to system whenever I don't know what to do with a theme is to pick a floral pre-cut PET or washi tape from the washi tape shop and build everything around that because I have lots of them and I always love them. This one is called Harvested Bloom and I have it in the washi version. As a lover of cold weather, this is going to help me pretend that I am not going into summer right now. Much like what I did for my October theme, I'm using this to sit just over the edge of this waterfall tab situation here where I've cut off some of the paper to reveal what's underneath. And on the tab that's underneath this, on that full page that still remains, I'm going to put some kind of burgundy toned solid washi tape, so that will go nicely with the reds in the flowers here, and then with that beautiful plaid tape from the previous one, they're all going to look really nice once they're sitting down next to each other. In a journal this size with the 9 by 9 inch pages, you've got a lot of page real estate to work with. I find it sometimes quite overwhelming, so cutting things down into waterfall tabs really helps me to use up some more of the pages and take some of the pressure off, not have as much room to fill up. For quite a bit of the year, earlier in the year, I did all of my tracking things across a single spread and I could make it fit, but once I realized I wasn't reading as voraciously this year as I did last year, I thought let's just use up some more pages and have some fun. This red burgundy washi tape came from Muji in a set with 2 other tapes, and at the time I bought it, I thought it was likely I would use this one the least, and I have actually used it so much I've nearly finished up the whole roll, which is so unexpected, but it's been a really good favourite for me for the past couple of years now. Now that my waterfall tabs are all sorted out, I can go ahead and start decorating my pages and giving them some function. So this first one is just going to be my November cover page, just a single page on the right here. And it's not going to serve any other purpose than being decorative and marking the beginning of my November reads. If you've been following along with my vlogs, I did recently try to make some stickers using Cricut foil and print then cut systems for my November theme, and I had also made some separate ones that were kind of beige. I wasn't having a great time with any of the above. I really didn't go so well with the Cricut foil, so instead I've defaulted to a system I used to use quite a lot and have kind of just rediscovered, which is using my PHOMEMO MO2 mini printer. I actually just got the MO2 Pro recently, so this is my first time using that one. I paired it up with a Canva doc that I just made the same width as the paper for that printer, which I think is about 5 centimeters wide, and just sized all of my headers with this nice serif font. It's a very subtle serif, it doesn't have too much kind of decoration going on. I just wanted to go with something a bit more simple this time, and even though I have to cut everything out myself, it was a little bit easier than trying to make everything with Cricut, since I wasn't getting along very well with it lately. I'm not including any of the design process for those headers in this video, but it will be in my next vlog, so stay tuned if you're keen to see how that little printer works and also how the thermal prints stand up over time, because I've been using them for a couple of years. We're going to have a look back at some of my old setups with them and see how they're holding up. I hadn't been planning on introducing any other bits of stationery for this theme, but once I hit this point, I thought it would be cool to have something a little bit academia vibey going on here, so I grabbed out this little sticker sheet from Sticky. This one came with one of their packs, the vintage pack I think, a little while ago. This one was actually designed by one of my favourite artists, Runa Marudi. I'm also subscribed to her Patreon, but this one was definitely a sticky sticker sheet. And they still have it listed on the website, so you can still get it. I'm not usually that into people in my journal, but I think these ones are really lovely. This is called the Light and Dark Academia sticker sheet, and I really like that it also has a Light and Dark Academia cat variation, which is just so nice. The next spread is for tracking my reading progress over the course of the month. I use Storygraph to keep track of this in real time as well, and then just use that data to update the spread. And I don't pay for Storygraph, and they're not paying me to talk about them either. I just genuinely really like it as an app. And I like that it gives you stats at the end of every month. You know how we've been getting all of the Spotify Wrapped, etc. lately? It's like that, but every single month, which is just so satisfying to me. On the right side of this spread, I'm adding a calendar, and I'm just going to track start and end dates of the books that I read on this calendar. And on the left side, I'm going to have space to put the book covers and the star ratings for the books I read in November. I don't typically have more than one book in one format on the go at a time, so I'll typically have maybe an audiobook and an ebook going concurrently. I don't typically do more than that because I start to get confused, and I do mostly okay at finishing books. I will DNF if I'm not having a good time. I will choose not to finish a book, but for the most part, I'm not typically choosing books to read that I don't enjoy. I have a pretty good idea of what I'm gonna like. From there, I'm just going to add some decoration in the gaps around the space because I have plenty of room to do it, so why the heck not? All of my smaller headers for this setup and also for my reading stats spread that we'll do next are in the same font that I used for the cover spread back there as well, the November header. It's actually called Lancelot. Usually I would put a little example of it on the screen for you, but this one's not a system font. I just used it within Canva, so I don't actually have it installed on my computer. But now you know what it's called in case you like the look of it. It's Lancelot. And here comes my own little Lancelot, although his name is Mitsu, to inspect my progress. This is my cat. He likes to come and have a look. I just love me a little bit of data. I don't really have a reason to track this stuff in my reading journal, but I just think it's so fascinating to look back at. I have chosen the things that I track based on what's available to me in Storygraph, so it's nice and easy for me to get this information at the end of the month. Just the number of books I read, the number of pages that was, or time listened for audiobooks, the average rating across all of the books I finished in that month, on average how long it took me to finish them, and I've got some little circles to act as pie charts as well. These are for the format that I read the books in, so how many were ebooks to audiobooks to the occasional print, very rarely. I've got a pie chart for fiction versus non-fiction. Most of the time it's 100% fiction, but every now and then there'll be one that is a non-fiction book. And I also have a pie chart for the ratio of how many of the books I read were library books versus books that I paid for or sourced in some other way. That information I actually use some custom tags on Storygraph to get, so I have made myself a library tag, and then tags for things like Audible credits or bought books as well, so I can keep track of that. I have to do a little bit of the calculating manually for that one, but I think that's actually quite fascinating information to have, so it's one I like to keep track of. Now that my November tracker pages are all set up, I can go ahead and populate them. November ended up being an absolutely insane month for me personally, so I didn't get to do any of my reading journal updating throughout the month as I would have probably liked to. I did all of this after the fact, so that means I've got all of the information available and I can just go ahead and complete this stuff right now. On the left page there, the November Reads page, any of the book covers that go in there and have a star rating underneath are books that I completed. I typically won't put the star rating stamp underneath a book cover unless I completed the book in that month. Sometimes I will start a book and not finish it within the course of the month, and so those ones don't get a star rating until the next month setup when I actually finish the book. And I don't give star ratings to books that I don't complete because I figure I don't have the full picture, so I just choose to DNF and let that be enough of a rating for itself. My star rating stamp is probably one of my most used items of stationery in my entire collection. I got it on Etsy a couple of years ago and it has paid for itself, but I spent quite a bit of money on it. The stamp itself wasn't that expensive, but shipping it to me from Germany was. But I use it all the time, so I do think it was worth the investment. Each of those coloured lines on the reading progress calendar there represents a different book. So I've got pink lines, I've got red lines, I've got grey lines, and I'm using my Tom Studio Ren pen for all of my lettering that needs to be black in this setup. I am having a good time at the moment using fountain pens and inking them up in different colours that match my bullet journal themes each month, but when it comes to writing over the top of a Tombow line like this, I think black is still the way to go. I need one more book cover down the bottom here that I haven't printed yet, so I just penciled out where it's going to go. And in case you're curious about my book covers and how I make them, I actually have a video about that. I have a Cricut Explore 3 and a printer in my house, so I use those two in tandem because that's the easiest way for me, but there are a bunch of ways that you can still do this even if you don't have either of those things. You can get them printed at your local office supplies place, or you can get one of those portable mini photo printers like the HP Sprocket or the Canon Ivy. I have an HP Sprocket and I actually used to use it for my reading journal too, and I have a short about how I use it for that, so I'll have that linked for you in the description as well. Let's finally talk about some books. I just wanted to preface this by saying I will not ever give you spoilers in the voiceover in my reading journal videos, but if you read what I write on the page for my reviews, there will be spoilers in that, so proceed at your own risk. We're starting out with Good Spirits by BK Borison, which I actually started in October but didn't finish until November. And the tape I'm decorating this spread with is the Midnight Noel tape from the Washi tape shop, and it doesn't appear to be listed on their site right now, so very sorry if you like the look of this one. Hopefully it comes back into stock. I don't know, it's a Christmas release, so it may not. If you've spent much time watching my reading journal videos in the past, you may already know that I love BK Borison. She's one of my favourite romance authors of all time. And I love paranormal romance as a genre, so when I heard that she was releasing a book where one of the main characters was a ghost, I was like, sign me up immediately. This was one of my most anticipated reads of the year, and it did not let me down. It was so much fun. But something that did let me down, I read this one on ebook, and there was something really weird going on with the formatting where new speakers didn't get a new line for some reason, and it made it really confusing and a bit hard to follow. I have since purchased the Owlcrate special edition of this book, which is really unusual for me. I don't typically buy physical books at all, so me buying a special edition as a shelf trophy is really out of character, honestly. But I checked out that version and it doesn't have the formatting error, so I'm hopeful that that means it's not in the other print versions as well. In this story, we're following Harriet, who is a serial people pleaser who's trying to find a way to live her life on her own terms. And we're also following Nolan. Nolan is a former fisherman turned ghost of Christmas past. And if you've ever read Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol or seen the Muppets Christmas Carol movie, you'll know that the Ghost of Christmas Past usually targets people who aren't very nice. But Nolan's given this assignment to shadow Harriet and work out what her deal is. And he's like, this girl seems really nice, actually. She doesn't seem like she's done anything wrong. He's actually part of a really bureaucratic ghost network system, which is so fascinating as far as the world of this story. And things start to happen and his magic starts to malfunction in ways that have never happened to him before, and he's like, this is scary. This isn't how this is supposed to go at all. It's a very cozy read. It's quite light-hearted. It's probably not my favourite of BK Borison's work ever, but her work is on another level anyway, so I still had a really good time with this book. In case you weren't aware, I have devised my very own book rating system called Peach. I named it after my cat. I have a video about it if you want to find out how it works here. I have given this book 22.5 out of 25 on my Peach rating scale, which makes it a 4.5 star read for me. Once I've got that information down on the review page here, we'll flip back to my progress spread and we'll update that over here on my November reads page as well. Pretty high praise that this is not my favourite book of hers and it's still got 4.5 stars, but the next book is going to get an even higher rating, so I had a pretty good reading month in November, didn't I? This one is Destroy the Day by Brigid Kemmerer, which is the third book in the Defy the Night trilogy, and my favourite book that I read in November. I was subscribed to a book subscription service earlier this year that supplied me with my first ever Brigid Kemmerer book, and I have not looked back since. She has really quickly become one of my favourite authors, especially for fantasy. I haven't read any of her romance yet, but maybe that's a 2026 goal. It's really hard for me to talk about this book given that it is the third book in a series without giving you spoilers, but I can tell you a bit about the world in general. Brigid Kemmerer does the ethical dilemma like nobody's business. She's amazing at challenging our beliefs of what is right and wrong, especially for people in positions of power, because quite a few of the characters in this story are the rulers of their kingdom, and she often puts them in situations where they have to come face to face with the people that they're in charge of, who are in much less privileged positions than them, and everyone gets a bit of a perception reality check. When I finished the second book in this series, I thought I had a bit of an inkling of where this one was going to go, and I was completely wrong, and I'm really glad that I was completely wrong because it went somewhere so much better. This entire fantasy series of 3 books does not have any magic, which it's amazing to me that I love this series because I live for magic in a fantasy story. There is none. There are a lot of politics, and I don't often enjoy that in a story either, but this one just does it so well. We're in the kingdom of Kandala, which is suffering from essentially a plague. Everybody is afflicted by this fever, and they have to take this moonflower elixir every day to try and stave it off. So of course the people who control the moonflower supply are the people with the most power, and the people with the least money have to try and steal the moonflower so that they can protect their families. There are 3 points of view in this story, and there are 2 separate romance lines, and the romance line that is new in this book just fills me with so much joy. I can't tell you who it is because it was a surprise to me. They are characters that were in the previous books, but this was a stay up all night reading, can't put it down kind of a story for me, and I'm very sad that the series is over, but I'm really looking forward to my first reread of it whenever that happens. I'm not a big rereader, but when I really, really love a story, I will revisit it every couple of years. I can't wait for my end of year stats from Storygraph because I know it's going to tell me Brigid Kemmerer was my top author this year. I think I've read 7 of her books this year, and that's a lot for me. I'm not really a long series kind of person, but I've read 2 of her series and the first book of a subsequent one, so that's quite a few. And as far as stationery on this spread, the map washi tape is from JOURNALSAY, but you can get it in a bunch of places. And the PET tape with the flowers on, I've actually used for all 3 of the books in this series, so that's a nice little bit of cohesion across all 3 of the pages. That one's also from JOURNALSAY. I gave this one 4.7 stars, which makes it possibly one of my highest rated books all year. I really don't give out perfect 5-star ratings, so 4.7 is huge. I did forget to colour in the star rating stamp on the review page though. Don't worry, I've done it off camera, but it won't happen in this video. I'm sorry if that's a bit underwhelming. I thought I had a spare book cover to put on the standout book section here, but I actually didn't. But I had a little one I could put on my Hall of Fame page over here, so we'll add that one in and I'll make a note and do my next batch of book covers soon, and then we'll continue on. I always like to wait until I have a few book covers stored up that I need to print and cut so that I'm not wasting a whole piece of sticker paper every time I need to print one book cover, you know. Completed book number 3 for the month is This Monster of Mine by Shalini Abeysekara. This was our Page Majors book club read for the month of November, and a big shout out to Kat for suggesting this book. We had really high ratings across the board when we discussed this one, which is always really good to see for a book club book, and also a huge shout out to Courtney for coming up with the discussion questions for this one, because November just had me in a chokehold. The washi tapes I'm using for this one are new ones I recently picked up from the Quirky Cup Collective. I love that they're a pretty good colour match to the book cover. That's always really satisfying, although I am going to move the floral one because I realised I didn't leave myself enough space to write down our discussion questions and then answer them for myself, so I'll add that back in somewhere else if I have space. This story is quite dark and quite violent at times, but it's also really fascinating. Our main character, Sarai, goes through something very, very traumatic very early on in the book, to the point where she is so badly injured that people assume she hasn't survived, and she kind of becomes a folk hero without meaning to. She did secretly survive though, and is a little bit hellbent on vengeance and finding out what really happened to her. She essentially becomes a government justice agent of a sort within the sector that involves the people that she suspects did horrible things to her. And she becomes the apprentice of the Tetrarch, the guy in charge that everybody thinks is the biggest monster of them all. But is he really? This is one of the most satisfying cases of a male love interest who really is morally grey. I feel like sometimes they try to say that he is, but he's kind of not really. This one, yeah. There's a dark academia vibe going on throughout the story. It's inspired by ancient Rome, there's a lot of Latin terminology, lots of twists and turns, lots of who do you trust. I was in a little bit of fantasy burnout after the Bewitched Book Challenge in October, so it took me a minute to really wrap my head around the world of this story and what everything meant and who everybody was. But once I got into it, this book was fantastic, and I can't believe this is Shalini Abeysekara's debut. It is so well crafted. I gave it 4 stars. I did struggle a little bit with writing my review for this one and discussing it in the Discord channel with my pals though, because I was listening to the audiobook for this one and I had a great idea of how to pronounce some stuff but really no idea how to spell it, which was fun. And we've got one more book to discuss before we get into setting up all of the tracking stuff for December. This one has been on my list to read for quite a while. It's actually the sequel to another Page Majors book that we read all the way back in March of 2024. That book was What the River Knows by Isabel Ibañez, and this one is the follow-up. It's called Where the Library Hides. As always, talking about the second book or subsequent in a series is a little bit tricky because you don't want to give away spoilers for the first book. Suffice to say, this is YA romance and adventure tied together. We're following 18-year-old Inez, who has travelled across the world to Egypt in 1885 to try and find out what has happened to her parents, who died under mysterious circumstances while working as Egyptologists. Inez is brash and impulsive, and she really didn't impress a lot of the page majors when we read the first book in this series, but I found her to be kind of charming. She's super intelligent, but she's also very emotional, which makes it easy to kind of lead her down the garden path. But when she teams up with Whitford Hayes, who is an Egyptologist, a former soldier, and a really hot guy who just so happens to work for her uncle, it's pretty amazing the mysteries that Inez can solve and the secrets she can uncover. By the way, both of the little ephemera bits I'm using here, the sticker set and the paper set, are both from JOURNALSAY, and neither of them are very great. I think they're probably all AI, unfortunately. I will use them on this spread and I will get them the heck out of my collection, because these ones are even kind of pixelated. I was trying to work out which way is the right way, like which way is up. I don't really think it matters. But I had been saving them for this journal spread, so now that it's done, I don't have to think about them anymore. The first book in this series, which is called The Secrets of the Nile, by the way, the series, was pretty divisive as a page majors read. We had mixed opinions on it. I found that I enjoyed the first one quite a bit more than this second book in the series. I don't know if that's because my tastes have changed over the year and a half, a little bit more since I read the first one, or if the writing was not as strong in this one. I'm not sure. I wasn't feeling it as much. I did this one on ebook, so I read it with my eyeballs. And there was nothing particularly offensive about it. Like, I didn't read anything and go, ooh, what's going on here? But I also didn't find that I was thinking about it outside of the context of reading it. I wasn't looking forward to picking the book back up again when I next had the opportunity. So this one I think was kind of pretty average for me, but that's okay because I still had a good time. Something that's really interesting about the way this one is told is that it's kind of dual point of view. It's mostly from Inez's perspective, but then at the end of every chapter there's a bit tacked on that's from Whitford's perspective. So it's kind of dual points of view, but only a little bit. Like, he only gets to say something quick and then we go back to Inez. I gave this one 3.4 stars, which I round up to 3.5 when I'm colouring in the star rating. It's easier to just go by quarter stars rather than trying to be really precise. And it's a duology, so I've finished the series now, which is nice. Let's get that star rating back on my November Reads page as well, so all that information is together, and then we can fill out my November reading stats. I was getting pretty tired by this point because I did all of this in a day. So I took a little break and I printed out my extra book covers that I needed. This is a book that I had started and not yet finished, Swept Away by Beth O'Leary. We'll talk about that one in my next reading journal video. But for now, November reading stats. I completed 4 books, which was a total of 1,129 pages and 22.7 hours of audiobook, because some of that was books that I didn't finish in the month, but I still listened to, you know. My average rating was 4.19, which I'm pretty happy with. That's pretty good. And on average, it took me 11 days to finish a book because girl was tired. Nothing especially unusual going on in my genre list. It was fantasy, romance, young adult, and historical, which are all very much in my ballpark. Typically, I have a higher ratio of audiobooks to ebooks every month because I'm listening while I'm setting up journal themes for my channel here, or while I'm driving, or while I'm doing dishes and that kind of thing. It was the opposite this month. I read 75% ebook and only 25%, which was only one book, audiobooks. They were all fiction this month, 100% fiction, and I had the same ratio actually, 75% library books to 25% just one book that I bought. And of course, my standout book for the month was Destroy the Day by Brigid, Kemmerer, the third one in the Defy the Night series. I also needed to add Defend the Dawn to the previous month's standout book. Consistently great, what can I say? And way back here in August, I hadn't added my standout book there either, so just getting caught up on some stuff that I hadn't considered. Which brings us to December. Let's go ahead and set up some December tracking spreads. We're actually going to fairly speed through this because you've already seen the process earlier in the video. I'm doing basically the same thing, except instead of a single page cover page this time, we will have a full 2-page spread. I did go ahead and make my December headers with my Cricut at the same time I was doing my book cover catch-up, and I had a lot of really lovely Christmas stationery from the Washi tape shop, some more Christmas tapes that I knew I wanted to feature, but I didn't really have any solid washi tapes that were going to work here, so for my waterfall tabs this time, I'm actually using paint markers and just colouring them in. This yellow is a really good match for the colour that I used for my December headers, so that's going to be really nice. I'm putting it on the back of the waterfall tabs, and I'm using a piece of just whatever washi tape as a bit of a mask here, so I can colour without worrying about getting the line not straight enough or having colour bleed anywhere I didn't want it. And it's going to give us a really fun kind of block primary colour effect, although one of the colours is going to be green, which is not in fact a primary colour, but you know. The reason I decided on yellow for my headers for this theme is because of this tape from the Washi tape shop. It's called Winter's Whisper. It is a very cozy, very colourful Christmas tape, and it's got lots of this nice gold in there, which I think is a really nice little touch. Once again, desperately trying to deny the season that I'm actually in because I don't especially enjoy summer, although I'm trying to teach myself to. As I mentioned, by this point, I was feeling a little bit tired, a little bit burned out on setting up this journal. It was pretty warm in my office, so I decided to just put down some solid green washi tape that I think goes pretty nicely with the tapes and with the colour of the marker that I used on the waterfall tab, and then just try to fill the space with the rest of the stickers from that tape. It's an interesting one because it's kind of in two phases, this tape. It has a phase that is this lovely kind of green and yellow and red, and then it goes into an icy blue kind of a section, and I wasn't really looking for that for this theme, so I'm just sticking with the halves of the tape that are within the colour scheme that I'm going for here. Sorry about the glare from my light on the PET tape sections on the top left side here. That's quite annoying, isn't it? But I'll show you what it looks like before we turn the page so you can see how it all comes together. Thankfully, the stickers on this tape are quite large. There are some smaller ones too, but the big ones are really helping me out here because they take up a good amount of space. I'm also going to work in some more of that Midnight Noel tape that I used earlier on the Good Spirits spread because it was already on my desk. It's kind of in the same theme and it had some nice yellow going on too. While we get this set up, I have a question for you. If you're someone who likes to read Christmas-themed books, do you have any favourites that you can recommend me? I feel like it can be hard to find a really good Christmas book. Obviously, I recommend Good Spirits. I thought it was a really good time. But what are some Christmas books that you've read in the past that you think are worth my time? I have read In a Holidays by Christina Lauren, and I have read The Christmas Wish by Lindsay Kelk, and they're actually kind of similar concepts. I enjoyed both of those. A few years ago, I read The 12 Dates of Christmas by Jenny Bayliss. That one was not really for me. And for another book club, I read another of her books, Meet Me Under the Mistletoe, a few years ago, and that one also didn't really hit for me either. I'm trying to get into the spirit. I'm having some struggles with it this year, so if you have recommendations, thank you, I would love to hear them. Likewise for TV and movies, actually, because I'm not really like a Hallmark Christmas movies kind of a gal, but I do love some Christmas movies. I love The Holiday. I rewatch the Netflix series Dash and Lily every year, and I've read the books for those ones too. I think the series is actually better. So sad we never got a second season of that, by the way. But if you're also looking for Christmas book, movie, TV recommendations, maybe the comment section can be a resource for you as well. We're on to the progress spread, so the reading progress calendar on the right side and the December reads page on the left side. I actually usually do the reading stats spread first, but I forgot and it doesn't really matter. There's enough room for a calendar and that's really all that matters, so we're going to do this one first this time. And there'll be a little bit of a sneaky preview of what will be coming up in the next reading journal video because this one is coming quite a bit later into the month than I typically like to do, which means I can show you the books that I have already started reading or even finished. I finished a couple already, so consider this spread when it's finished to be a little bit of a teaser for next time. Now that this spread's all set up, let's go ahead and add some book covers to it. The first two are books that I have actually already finished, but I'm not going to talk about them in this video. You'll have to wait until the next one. Swept Away by Beth O'Leary and Evenings and Weekends by Oisin McKenna. I'm also currently listening to the audiobook for Under the Mistletoe, which is a collection of short stories that are Christmas themed by some of the big heavy-hitting romance authors. And in case you see my book cover for that one and you also are reading that one and you're like, where did you get that? I actually kind of made it myself. I took the Audible one and I added some stuff to it in Canva to make it the right size for a book cover, and then I added some snow because it looked a bit weird. I know it's more of a standard thing to have a square book cover for when you do the audiobook, but I like them all to be uniform, so if there is only a square version, I will edit it to make it fit with my style. And all we have left to set up now is my reading stats page for December, which I accidentally printed the header a bit wrong for. I usually will just use the same headers from the previous month if I'm doing the Cricut system, and I forgot to change it. It said October, the template that I was using, so we'll just have reading stats this time. It doesn't have to say December. I know when it is. There's a cover page for that. The reading stats are the same from one month to the next because I take them from Storygraph, so they're the exact same headers that we had in the November setup. There's nothing different going on there. I did forget to do the standout book header though, so I'm just going to write that one by hand when we get there. I clearly wasn't thinking super clearly when I made those stickers because I didn't make any for my pie charts. I usually will just print and cut those ones as well. So I'm using my little circle ruler template thing, which is very handy, and just DIYing those ones the old-fashioned way. And that's everything. Let's have a flip through everything that we've just set up from November all the way through to the new December spreads. Don't forget to let me know what your favourite read in November was. I always want to hear, and I get some really good recommendations from you guys in the comments too, so that's always something I really look forward to. Also, if you've read any of the books that I'm discussing in this video, I'd love to hear your thoughts on those too, even if they're different to mine. I love hearing different opinions to my own. That's part of why I think my book club is so much fun, because you get to hear perspectives that are different to your own. Someone else's experience of the same book can sometimes be entirely different to yours, and sometimes you learn some things about the book as well that you didn't pick up yourself, which is always great. I hope December is proving to be a wonderful reading month for you, that maybe you find a new book or a new author that is special to you. And in case you're still looking for some recommendations, here is a link to a playlist of all of my reading journal videos so far this year, as well as a link to a video that YouTube thinks you might enjoy.